On the Wake Up Radio presents The Center with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, Black family, and welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. Shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out at SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. As I get myself together and pick a song. Let's see. All right, that's tonight's song. Y'all let me know if y'all can hear that. So tonight discussion. Well, first of all, for those who don't follow me on Instagram, I just want to say that last night would have been our discussion on black male-female relationships. That was the plan, and the plan was scrapped because there was not enough interest. I wanted to have four single sisters on to talk about, to have that discussion with. And so that did not take place. It will be rescheduled. I'm looking at possibly 2 weeks from tonight, because 3 weeks from, I think like 3 weeks from yesterday is Malcolm X Day. The next week after that is Black Liberation Day. And then you're into June, and I think that's possibly when Barbara Baruti will have his event dealing with black love and relationships. If that is going to be a live event, not just online event. I don't know right now, but I know it's usually like the first, second week of June. So a lot of stuff coming up as it gets warm. So I'm gonna try to do that, 2 weeks from 2 weeks from today, or 2 weeks from yesterday. That's the goal. That's the plan. So that's why that didn't happen last night. That's why I didn't put it up on the YouTube schedule, because I didn't get like normally when I post that stuff and I say I want some sisters to show up, they normally contact me, and that didn't take place. So I was like, uh-oh. So that's what happened with that. And we'll give it a go again in a couple of weeks, and I'll probably announce it like Tuesday. Start posting it, and maybe it can get around more, and some people will be interested. And if not, then we'll just scrap the idea. Until tonight's discussion is we're going to talk about the rise of the post-racial black athlete. And the reason that you see O.J. Simpson back up here, even though we talked about him 2 weeks ago, is because O.J. Simpson is really the poster child for what we're talking about. He's like, in many ways, he's the modern genesis of this idea that I'm talking about, right? This is the man that said, I'm not black, I'm OJ. And let me stop. I'm being rude. I'm not greeted everyone that's in the chat. Let's start with brother, excuse me. Let's start with brother Elijah. Before they straight black pride to brother Elijah. Before they straight black pride to Sister Farnessa. Before the brother you got ripped off. Before they straight black pride to brother Desaline. Greetings to brother Lee, and peace and straight black pride to brother Crow, BB40 to brother Kevin, BB40 straight black pride to brother Kevin. So everybody I see right now, y'all know I try to greet everybody at the beginning, but I'm not gonna lie, even though this show came to me, this idea came to me yesterday as or maybe Friday, after the first round of the NFL draft took place. I don't know, man. Today's just kind of lethargic. I was disappointed that I couldn't get sisters to show up for that discussion. Because if that went well, then I was going to bring some brothers on, and then some couples, and evolve it like that. But never got off the ground, so I'm not gonna lie, a little disappointed. So yeah, so let's go back to OJ. Let's start with OJ. Orenthal James Simpson is, like I said, like the prototype of the modern athlete as far as being accepted by Europeans and being able to take his career and convert it into Hollywood and make movies and all that stuff, right? He was really like the first one that I know of. I know James Brown did it. I mean, Jim Brown, excuse me. Not Jim Brown, the football player. I know he did it as well as far as crossing over into movies and everything. But Jim Brown wasn't as accepted in the European community as OJ was. He just wasn't. That's why the case was such a big case, because he was like, basically, Europeans were like, we let this Negro in and treat him like one of us, and this is how he rewards us, right? That's why it was such a big deal. That's why it was the trial of the century at the time, because of the access he was given, right? So with that, that's why I have him up here, because he was that before anyone else. And you have to understand, we forget, and this is also important. OJ went to the University of Southern California in 1968, right? USC would be involved in a historic game that would alter the course of college football history just 2 years after OJ, 1 or 2 years after OJ graduated. I think it's 2. I think 68 was a senior year. And in 1970, the football game that altered the course of NCAA football history took place between USC and University of Alabama, right? Now, anybody that knows anything about college football right now knows that the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, the conference that basically like the football, the athletic conference, make pretty much makes up the Confederacy. All right, right. If you look at where the teams are, you have University of Georgia, and I'm not gonna go through all the teams, but you got University of Georgia, University of Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, which is also in Tennessee, South Carolina, yeah. North Carolina is not included, but you know, they're in the ACC. And I'm trying to think of the old ones, but basically, if you look at where the SEC is, it's just like pretty much the Confederacy, you know. Now, at this time, most of the NCAA football teams were, especially in the South, they were all segregated, right? And the coach of the legend, he's legendary now, coach of, I guess he's legendary then because they were winning in the 50s and the early 60s. Bear Bryant called up his buddy who was the coach of USC, right? And said we wanted to play them. You know, let's have a game, let's start off the season playing each other. Now, there's a lot of like revisionist history about what happened, but here's basically what happened. Alabama was dominating the early 60s. As more and more teams from other places started to get black players, other schools started getting better, right? Now, at that time, you have to understand college football was nowhere near as big as it is now, monetarily, because BB4ODA, greetings to Raw Ito Vital, it was nowhere as big as it is monetarily now, because this is before the rise of cable television, right? And sports on cable television, before the rise of ESPN. So the money was not into college sports like that. And in fact, the money wasn't into pro sports like that. Like we can say definitively, like no one, I mean, people can try to argue, but they don't know what they're talking about. The money came into sports when black people began to dominate these sports, right? The number one sport at the time, when college football was before college football was integrated, when the NBA was integrated, but you know, it was still a lot of white players. The number one sport in America, as far as like popularity and sales and all that, was Major League Baseball, right? College sports were kind of like a local phenomenon. So when Bear Bryant started losing, when he stopped being dominant, because he was dominating, he had won like 3 national championships in the 50s and a couple in the early 60s, whatever. What he started realizing is that, okay, these other schools that integrated, the USCs, some of these schools out west and some of these other places, if I keep letting them take this talent, because they've taken some of the talent from out of the South, before they the real black gentleman, we're going to be left behind. That's basically what happened. He didn't come to he didn't have some moment where, he suddenly became less racist and realized the area of his ways. Wasn't none of that. That is strictly a business decision. So he decided to play that game. USC brought their team down, and now, mind you, by this time they were developing a standard for running backs. At that time, the game was built more around running the ball, and it was more physical, things like that. So John, can't remember the coach's name, USC coach name, John. He's a legendary coach too. But anyway, John, whoever, he brings his USC team down. They have Sam Bam Cunningham as I didn't realize this because when I saw the old clips, he was just running over the team. He was the backup. he was the backup. So he ran over them. He had 100 yards as the backup. 100 yards rushing, scored like 2 or 3 touchdowns or whatever. They had a black quarterback. He throwing the ball, running around all over. I mean, they just basically they brought their black dudes down there and just made Alabama look crazy. John McKay, thank you, brother Kevin. It made them look crazy, right? This, according to most of the people the historians and stuff, this is the game that altered the racial course, and I'm saying the economic course of college basketball. And in a way, college sports, because college basketball has always been the biggest thing, right? And change. And in fact, the growth of the SEC has completely changed the entire landscape of college sports, because different conferences have, like the Pac-10, which became the Pac-12, I think is basically falling apart. Is different schools are going to different places. USC and UCLA left the conference. So the Pac-10 doesn't exist no more. This is a historic college conference that doesn't exist anymore. I think last year was the last year. Like Texas and Oklahoma, big schools that have been around historically, been dominant over the years, they're joining the SEC. The SEC was already dominant and they like swallowing up. So none of this, if this game doesn't happen, the SEC falls by the wayside. You know what I'm saying? Other conferences like, the Big 12 or whatever it was, and the Big 10 and the Pac-10 and all that stuff would be big, and they would just been left by the wayside if it wasn't for the black athlete, right? So what I wanted to show a clip of that game, and then we're going to come and look at an article that shows the repercussions of that event, because there's some other repercussions from that event that we never talk about. Integration is it's a double-edged sword. You know what I'm saying? For every benefit that we think we get, there's also a detriment that we don't talk about. So let's look at this clip real quick of the Alabama USC game and the ramifications of that.
In the 1960s, Alabama was pretty much like it was during the slavery years. Blacks were still very much treated as inferior citizens, segregated by race from much of the political and economic life of the state.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
This was Alabama in the 1960s.
I saw the images of the dogs and the fire hoses and the marches, and saw that on television and was just amazed at how much carnage was happening and didn't really understand why.
As the 1970s dawned, Alabama was still in the throes of the struggle for civil rights, and Bear Bryant's Crimson Tide was still all white. Then, Bryant asked his good friend John McKay of USC if he'd bring his Trojans to Birmingham to open the 1970 season.
He said that we were going to play the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and that, we're going to focus on just the football aspect of it and not worry about the civil rights situation.
By 1970, USC had 18 black players on the varsity roster. There was only one black player in the Alabama program, Wilbur Jackson. Like all freshmen at the time, he was ineligible to play for the varsity. To accelerate the rate of integration on the Alabama football team, the Afro-American Student Association had filed suit in 1969. The association was represented by a young attorney named U.W. Clement.
The black students at Alabama were determined to require Bear Bryant to recruit black players. It was important for us to be a part of that institution.
The question was, if we can win without them, right? That's where some in the Alabama fan base were. Look, we're really good without that, so why do we want to do that?
Many have theorized that Bear Bryant had one singular motivation for scheduling USC: to demonstrate for Alabama's fans why the time for change had arrived.
The vast majority of black Alabamians felt as I and cheered for USC.
September 12th, 1970, Legion Field.
Playing Southern Cal, it was terrific. Fans were excited. The place was just electric.
Sam Cunningham, USC's backup fullback, entered the game on the Trojans' opening possession.
Our spring practice was tougher than that game. I mean, the holes looked like you could drive a car through them, and no disrespect to Alabama.
Our guys on defense were as tough as a $3 steak, and they just could not get him down.
Cunningham scored twice in the first quarter. He was unstoppable, as were most of his teammates on offense and defense. The Crimson Tide, the pride of Southern football, got manhandled. The Trojan offense gained 559 yards. Sam Cunningham carried the ball 12 times for 135 yards.
Their black guys were bigger, stronger, faster. Their white guys were bigger, stronger, faster. And if they had any polka dot guys, they were bigger, stronger, and faster.
The final score, 42-21. If Bear Bryant had truly hoped the Trojans would make a point that was impossible for Alabama fans to misunderstand, they had, and then some.
At the end of the game, Bear Bryant was in the middle of the field with the biggest smile you've ever seen in your whole life, smiling, shaking McKay's hand. Did you ever see Bear Bryant smile after such a loss?
Now, that clip gives us the history and basically shows that historic event that altered the course. Now, what happened when the course was altered on the opposite end? Look at this article from a few years ago. It says the golden age of black college football lost to integration. Because it didn't say it in this clip. I had another clip, but I didn't, I didn't want to use too much. This will probably be demonetized anyway because of where I got that clip from, but who cares? While before we could go to the SEC schools and go to USC and so forth, so on, and places like University of Maryland, which if I'm not mistaken, University of Maryland didn't desegregate until 1955, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, depending on how old you are, your mother that might be a time when your mother or your parents were still alive, or whatever case may be. But during that time, we had our athletes were going to historically black colleges and university. The University of Grambling was basically known as a football factory, right, at that time. And their coach, and y'all help me out because Coach Eddie Robinson, legendary coach, right, not just as a football coach and a recruiter and a innovator, but as a maker of men, a molder of men, men of good character, right? Um, for a while, Florida A&M was a dominant team, and they were putting out dominant players, right? And Southern University and some of these other schools they were sending players to the NFL. Now, mind you, the NFL was not a big thing at this time until really, I think it was the second or third Super Bowl where the Joe Namath Super Bowl, and they beat the Colts, and then they merged, and then that was like the birth of big time NFL football. Because at this time, college football was bigger than the NFL, right? And the NBA had not exploded. All of this stuff happened basically about a decade after everything got integrated. So, just being completely honest, black people helped all this stuff explode. You had once cable TV came into it, and they could cover, like ESPN could cover different games in different regions. They could show you people from all over the country, and literally like all day on Saturday and things like that. That's what made college, and they were able to put money into it. That's what made college football explode. The NCAA, when CBS at the time, when they put money into it and helped expand the college basketball, that's what made college basketball explode. Where the NCAA tournament, I think at one time, it's like 16 teams. And then I think they expanded to 32. But when they went to 64 teams and the Big East Conference became big, Georgetown became a thing in the early 80s, and North Carolina was a thing, and so forth, so on. All of that helped explode college basketball. And that's where you would see, you would see some of these schools like, Georgetown's a perfect example of a school that if you weren't familiar with the school, like there were people on the West Coast wearing Georgetown jackets and jerseys and stuff and thinking it was a black school, because now this is a school that's like 95% white. But because Coach John Thompson was such a towering figure, and he was like, in a weird way, like the Eddie Robinson of basketball, except he wasn't at a black university, where Eddie Robinson was at a black university and built a powerhouse and, built the institution. People didn't know that Georgetown was a white school because they saw a black coach and black players, right? That goes to show you how our presence is just able to make a school popular. That's just a school that's known, this is a Jesuit institution that's known for producing lawyers and politicians. You know what I'm saying? And he helps make it a basketball powerhouse, right? But what goes along with that? What goes along with that is if John Thompson's at Georgetown, if John Thompson's at Howard and is able to turn Howard into a powerhouse, then all that money would go to Howard. But the money doesn't go to Howard. The money goes to Georgetown because it goes to Georgetown. That's just an example. And I use that example because both schools are here in the city. And before John Thompson, in reality, Georgetown's basketball program was about on the same level as Howard's basketball program. To be completely honest, neither one of them wasn't any good. You know what I'm saying? But one is a school that still had money, and the other one is, HBCU. And we know how the money is with the HBCUs. So let me get into this article real quick. Says, on the morning of October 6, 1979, University of Miami coach Howard Schnellenberger told his players that their game against Florida A&M was their opponent's Super Bowl. Miami was unranked, but still expected to beat FAMU. a historically black college and university in Tallahassee. Shout out to the Rattlers. For the Rattlers, an opportunity to play a high-profile in-state team like the Hurricanes was a massive undertaking. Major college football had been fully integrated for nearly a decade. It wasn't until 1972 that every football team in the SEC fielded a black player, based upon what we just saw. But the leading programs of the day avoided HBCU teams. Tennessee didn't play Tennessee State. LSU didn't play Grambling or Southern. And FAMU lived in the shadow of Florida, Florida State, and Miami. Now, I'm going to say this. I bet you $1 to a donut that LSU would have got whooped by Grambling back in them days. All right. I'm gonna just say that. Now Grambling, LSU is this great powerhouse, and they put, seemingly like half a dozen people into the league every year. But in those days, Grambling was the powerhouse, and LSU was just another SEC team. Now, says it was a competitive strategy developed on segregation and built on fear. Major colleges didn't want to risk losing to HBCUs. FAMU was a pillar of the golden age of black college football. Between 1945 and 1969, the Rattlers went 204 and 36 with 4 ties and won 8 black college national championships, including 6 in the 1950s and 20 conference championships. I'll be completely honest. I knew the Rattlers had some impressive history in college football back in the day, but when I saw this, I was like, I had no idea that they were on that level in the 50s. No clue. In 1979, the Rattlers, the defending 1AA champions and winners of back-to-back black college national championships, were arguably the most dominant HBCU program in the country. Which is saying something, because that means they were better than Grambling, which is saying something. At the time of their matchup against Miami, FAMU epitomized black college football excellence, but the program's influence would fade at the end of the 20th century. Miami, meanwhile, will go on to become one of the country's dominant teams, winning 4 national championships between 1983 and 1991. The Hurricanes, like so many other high-profile programs, began recruiting the talent that sustained successful black college football throughout the 20th century. FAMU won a tight contest, 16-13. Celebrating Rattlers fans paraded onto the field as Miami's kicker sailed a 20-yard chip shot wide of the left upright. According to a Sports Illustrated account of the game, players launched head coach Rudy Hubbard onto their shoulders, riding in a sea of orange helmets and raised black fists. The Rattlers' lauded band, the Marching 100, beat their drums in the background. It was a soundtrack of triumph. Fans celebrated inside of the stadium for an hour after the victory. One Miami player told the Tallahassee Democrat that FAMU had a good defense, good athletes, but they're not real sophisticated. Now, hold up now. Let's stop right here. Sounds like to me that somebody was hating and was mad that they took the L. Now, what is he saying with they weren't real sophisticated? What does that sound like? Hold up, y'all made me forget my music here. Where my music at? What was I playing? Was it? Defense and some good athletes, but they wasn't real sophisticated. Now, somebody translate for me what that means. That means Negroes were just big and strong, but they wasn't smart, right? That's what I hear anyway. But anyway, let's go back to the article. Says, hold on, let me go back. because I don't lost my place here. Because I just had to laugh at that part. It says University of Kentucky professor Derek White recounts memories of the game in Blood, Sweat, and Tears, his history of black college football. The book forcefully retells the story of black colleges while unpacking the effects of integration on black sporting communities. Many Americans believe HBCUs to be of lesser educational quality, so athletic achievement was a way to show the value of black life. HBCUs, White says in an interview, had fewer material resources, and still do. But that was offset with the human resources. Staff believed the students could learn. The question is, how does one prove that? Football became a really good measurement. They were producing high numbers of professional athletes, and that was a proxy for their quality. Football helped to develop a bountiful idea of black identity within these communities. It became the athletic representation of black culture, and success on the gridiron held the possibility of equality on and off the field. Stop right there. The reason I want to stop right there is because in many ways, that statement has led us down the path of destruction. Because what does he say? Basically, we're using athletics to prove our humanity. And that mentality has persisted in the black community amongst black men to this day. And I don't even think we even realize how pervasive it is. Because, of course, one of the ways, what do people talk about? One of the ways that people try to get out of their circumstances, being economically deprived, is what? The rapper and the athlete. And the need to feel like a quote unquote human being, expressing myself through this physical activity. You know what I'm saying? Because that then leads to, now that I have achieved a certain status, I can now take the I can get the rewards of that status. And the rewards of that status is what? Non-black women. I can get the same women that the European who I just dominated physically on the football field, on the basketball court, sometimes the tennis court, the golf course. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes even the ice hockey rink, right? You got brothers over there that was dominating for a while. I'm not sure what's going on with hockey now, but I remember you had a few brothers that just popped up and was good all of a sudden then. I'm like, where'd they come from? Right? That mentality of wanting to be equal, that thing is dangerous. Man. Anyway, let me get back to the article. At their inception, HBCUs were the bedrock for black citizens to create their own political, professional, and educational halls as a means of survival. White missionaries and religious leaders helped create the first black schools in the northern states before passing the Morrill Act in 1862, a law which established land grant colleges and aided in the creation of black colleges across the South. The law was expanded in 1890 to provide federal funding for HBCUs in the South. Though their financial growth was capped when the law adopted segregationist language of the time. These institutions allowed black citizens to counteract the harshest waves of American racism, especially after segregationist efforts spread like an epidemic across the South during the period of redemption and after the 1896 decision of Plessy versus Ferguson. Historian Rayford Logan in The Betrayal of the Negro describes the period between Reconstruction and the First World War as the nadir of the America's race relations. Now, one part that they're not going to talk about there is the betrayal, as he says, the betrayal of the Negro The part that isn't discussed is the fact that who was it that reneged on the 40 acres and the mule and allowed for the laws that became the Jim Crow laws? But who was backdooring us there? That was the Hats. Again, Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2 outlines that. So I just want to put that context in because that part is going to be missing. Also, who were some of the people that were financing some of these schools at the same time while they were backdooring us? Again, it was the Hats. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to make sure that history is complete because I know people are not going to, that part of it just going to be left out. Right. Now, it says, given the country's resistance to integration, Black colleges created similar cultural conditions on their campuses as their white counterparts, including in their athletic departments. It was invention born of necessity. Black citizens were denied access to the nation's white schools. Now, in his book, In Their Own Interests, historian Earl Lewis wrote, Afro-Americans discovered that even though they cannot always secure the range of improvements desired, they could begin to what? Frame their own reality. Stop right there. If we took that idea of using these institutions to build our children in a way for them to think about how we could become self-sufficient instead of trying to integrate, but build up ourselves, build up our communities, build up our economies, and build up our own militia. Look, if you can't defend it, it don't exist. You know what I'm saying? Understand, anywhere in the world, back then, now, 6,000 years ago, 6,000 years from now, that which cannot be defended shall be destroyed as long as the destroyer of worlds exists on planet Earth. I don't have to tell you who that is. The last 6,000 years of history documents this fact, right? Now, let's go back, let's try to finish up this article. Black colleges have created more Black doctors, judges, and lawyers than any other institution in America, and capture our greatest sounds and develop our sharpest minds. This was especially true of intercollegiate athletics. The sporting congregation born from Black colleges, the students, coaches, Black press, and reformers showed what was achievable through autonomy. Man, come on, man. Was achievable through autonomy. The sporting congregation born from Black coaches, the students, coaches, Black press, and reformers showed what was achievable through autonomy, meaning what we could do for ourselves. Football became a conduit between HBCUs and Black communities and a critical source of Black pride in the 20th century. Says, I tried to put games into prominence among our people, says John Hope, who coached at Morehouse College. He wrote to his wife in a letter documented by Hope's biographer, Leroy Davis. Sports teaches them how to contest without losing self-respect. Teaches them how to contest without losing what? Self-respect. What respect is he trying to teach our people to have? Self-respect. It is a means of acquiring bravery and gentility. It is a means of acquiring what? Bravery and gentility. Man, what are some of the things that we are lacking nowadays amongst Black men? Self-respect and bravery, right? So We were on the kind of, I mean, the ideals that were being passed down and the reasoning behind doing for self were beneficial and things that we still need today. There's a lack of self-respect amongst black people and amongst the black man. Black males. Rank cowardice is running rampant amongst our people. Let's just keep it a buck. Especially what? Black males. Black males will come and shoot up the entire block, shoot up women and children, shoot up old people, beat people over the head, rob people blind, do all that stuff. But the police come and shoot down somebody, and you look for somebody to put in some work. All of a sudden, everybody is a pacifist and don't nobody own firearms. Stop me when I'm lying. We can destroy each other, but because we don't have any self-respect and because we have too much cowardice. Let's get back to the article. It says, despite the inherent inequalities brought about by segregation, black colleges and their football programs thrived in the middle of the 20th century. Morgan State won 4 titles in 7 years from 1943 to 1949, losing only 8 games in that span. Coach Ace Mumford led Southern to 3 titles and a 32-0-2 record from 1948 to 1950. Under Jake Gaither, Florida A&M lost 4 times in 58 games from 1957 to 1962 and produced several AFL and NFL pros. Toward the end of the century, black colleges featured future NFL stars like Jackson State's Walter Payton, who at one time was the all-time leading rusher. Mississippi Valley State's Jerry Rice, who I believe right now is currently the all-time leading receiver in the NFL. And Alcorn State's Steve McNair, who finished 3rd in Heisman voting, despite playing at an HBCU. And Doug Williams, a Grambling alum, who became the first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl in 1988 with Washington under Coach Joe Gibbs. And then they ceremoniously dumped him a couple of years later. But anyway, despite its success, black college football existed mostly outside of the attention of white institutions and audiences. The press rarely, if ever, pushed the teams into the mainstream of athletic coverage. Football was a sport of order, of manliness, especially among elite colleges across the Northeast. An American spectacle, as author Michael Oher once claimed, but never an entry point for black Americans to achieve equality. Eric Roberts, a sports writer for the Atlanta Daily World, explained the significance of black college football's rise in an interview with Columbia University's Black Journalist Oral History Project in 1971. He said he gasped during the days when 20,000 people would flood a Howard versus Lincoln football game. What he saw went beyond football. Our heaven and our glory was not at Harvard, but at Howard and Lincoln, and it moved south where Morehouse and Atlanta University and Clark and Morris Brown and Tuskegee and Alabama State and finally Florida A&M and other schools west of the Mississippi all joined the passion of the black world. The athletic glory of black colleges faded in the latter decades of the 20th century, a byproduct of the federally mandated integration following the 1954 Supreme Court decision, Brown versus Board of Education. Numerous programs crumbled under the weight of desegregation, unable, according to White's history of the sport, to keep up as its talent pool was diminished. Recruited by more prominent programs with vastly superior resources, HBCUs lost their influence almost overnight. It is difficult to know whether those glory days are gone forever. Let's just be honest, they are. Because here's the reality of the situation. As I said previously, in the midst of that, where as they say, as the other schools begin to recruit the black players and the HBCUs began to decline. That's also at the time where more money is coming into the system via ESPN, ABC, CBS, and NBC. Like at one time, and maybe they still do, but like each network at the time had a conference that they showed, or sometimes two. So the individual conferences in the NCAA were getting television deals. So CBS, I remember a few years ago, CBS was always showing the SEC, and Notre Dame had their own contract with NBC some type of way. And then I don't know who was showing the Pac-10 or what, I can't remember all. But the point is, the amount of money that poured into the system, poured into the PWIs, predominantly white institutions, and they got more money, they got better, they were able to get better weight training and all the things that go with it to make them more appealing. So it wasn't just that you went there and you got on TV, but you got a better chance to get to the NFL because you played against better competition. You got to eat better food. You got to, got to sleep in a better bed. You get to ride in a better bus. Like literally everything is better because the money is being funneled there and the HBCUs aren't being covered. So even though HBCUs will have an occasional athlete or two on their team who is NFL caliber, right? Still, that person, they're the anomaly where the person knows, okay, if I have to choose between, let's say I'm in Florida, I can go to FAMU. I'll be close to mom's, right? But University of Florida is calling. Alabama's calling. USC is calling. I got a cousin in California. I love California because I went there 2 times. Texas is calling. You see what I'm saying? Now we got the NIL deals. I'll get to that in a minute. Why would I, no disrespect, but why would I just go to FAM when I could go to Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, USC, right? Michigan, they want me to replace somebody that they just sent to the NFL and they just won the championship. I'm from Florida. Do I really want to go to Michigan? No, but they just won the championship, so now maybe I do want to go, right? Like these are the things that take place. Now, I don't know about now, but I'm gonna say this. They're at 20 years ago. Okay, 25 years ago. Time flies. I know that one of the things they did, right? And who remembers Spike Lee's movie? I believe it. He Got Game. I think that's the name of it. He showed this. Talked to some brothers that got recruited by some big time schools. They were saying it was an exaggeration of a reality. Let's just say while you're on your recruiting trip, you're shown a good time. And part of that good time being shown is young ladies. And at that time, young ladies who you wouldn't normally have access to if you came from Alabama, Georgia, like young ladies that you might be risking your life for. But hey, you might be risking your life to deal with them in Florida, Georgia, so forth, so on. But at USC, we got plenty of these. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy yourself, right? That is the beginning of how you get the post-racial athlete, because they get put in an environment that they didn't even, a world you don't even know exists, right? I went to a HBCU. I grew up in a black city with black mayor, black police chief, black everything. If I had gone to, let me see what some of the schools I wanted to go to. If I had went to USC, right? I loved California when I was young, because I had been. Man, listen, I would be a totally different person. Let's just put it like that. I would be a totally different person, because in that environment, your whole worldview changed, because you see totally different stuff. If I had went to University of Miami, right? That was my favorite college football team. Again, your whole worldview changes. Now, not only do the athletes go there and you just all these different things you didn't get to see, but now they make money, right? They can make money while in college. They just gave Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back, because what he was accused of then is par for the course now, right? So that's how much things have changed. So on one end, you can make the argument that, okay, being integrating into these schools for athletics benefits the people, because you quote unquote get a better education, you have a better opportunity to go to the various leagues, and you have an opportunity to make more money. Now, I did some calculations on the money. I want to show you how much money is coming into the black community. These are estimates now via athletics, right? So check these numbers out. This is as of last year. There are approximately 900 black NFL players. There are approximately 1,700 NFL players on rosters last year. Approximately 53% of the league is black. That comes up to right around 900 black players. Of those 900 black players, the average salary is approximately $2.8 million, right? If you take those 900 black players, you multiply that by that $2.8 million, you're talking about approximately $2.5 billion. $2.52 billion coming into the black community strictly from NFL salaries. I'm going to say that again. Approximately 900 black players equaling up to approximately $2.52 million. These are estimates now. This is just player salary. This does not include endorsements and, side businesses and anything like that, right? So when, I guess Cam Newton doesn't have commercials anymore, but does Lamar Jackson, do we have commercials? If he got a commercial, like when Lamar Jackson comes on TV with his commercials, we ain't counting that. We just counting his checks. Like, so when Deshaun Watson gets his $50 million a year, or whatever he gets, and Lamar Jackson gets his $50 million a year, and then I know some receiver just got like 25, 30 million a year. You know what I'm saying? And then all the people that just got drafted, they get their hundreds of thousands and millions, depending on where they got drafted. All of that adds up to approximately $2.5 billion per year, right? That's just the NFL. NBA, approximately 392 players, black players, play for the NBA. The average NBA salary is $10 million, which when I saw that, I was like, whoa. So I know people like LeBron and people at the upper echelon are making at least $50 million. Is anybody making $60 million? Y'all let me know. But I know people making 50 and above. All of that came up to $368,480,000. When you add up these two numbers, you're basically just south of $3 billion received in salary by black athletes per year that comes into the black community. Be before they straight black pride, straight black sock. I'm gonna say that again. These are estimates. These are rough estimates based on my surface level research. $2.5 billion in salary received by black players in the NFL, $368,480,000 for black players in the NBA, because much smaller number of players, combining for $3 billion coming into the black community via professional athletics of just these two leagues. I didn't count Major League Baseball, soccer, boxing, UFC, any of that. Just these two leagues. $3 billion. Now I'm gonna ask you all. Let's take the taxes out, because they take 1/3, so that's $2 billion. But can we not say that if our people had some type of racial consciousness, could we not take 1/4 of that $2 billion and not turn that into something to benefit our communities if our people had some type of racial consciousness? But here's the dilemma. Here's the problem. Number one, most of these people are receiving this money when they're 20, 21, 22 years old. That's when they start receiving money. I'm just be completely honest. I don't know any 21-year-old people who can be responsible stewards of millions of dollars. I'm just keeping it 100. The second thing that takes place that we don't talk about when we look at these numbers is many times, though not all the time, your agents. Who's your agent? First of all, most of the time your owners are hacked. Your agents are hacked. Your lawyers are hacked. Your real estate, your real estate man that takes you to go get your new house is a hack. Your car dealers are hacked. Your jewelers are hacked. Your tailor might be a hack. Are we starting to get a picture here of where this $3 billion ends up? We haven't built up the proper infrastructure around our athletes for them to be able to funnel money into the community, because the people that are surrounding them from a financial perspective are people outside of our community. Right? Now, what's even worse is if you become the athlete, you become the post-racial athlete like Kobe Bryant. Now, his father and his mother are black. His father played in the NBA, but his father wasn't good enough to play here, so he was playing overseas. So Kobe Bryant is over there learning Italian and I think Spanish, right? If I'm not mistaken, Kobe Bryant spoke fluent Italian and Spanish. Kobe Bryant was, even though he didn't go to college, from my understanding of interviews and stuff and people talking about him, he was a pretty sharp brother, right? But he had no racial identity. So what happens? We forget Kobe Bryant was hanging around with Brandy. Let's be honest, Brandy was in love with Kobe Bryant, and they looked like they were going to be this Hollywood it couple thing where he was in LA and she's gonna be an actress, singer, superstar, and he's gonna be a basketball superstar, and he ends up with some random Spanish chick. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest, it's Los Angeles, man. It's Los Angeles. Random Spanish chick is all over Los Angeles. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to his wife. I'm just keeping it a buck. She wasn't nobody when he met her. She wasn't Brandy. Brandy was a star, right? Brandy went on to become a bigger star. She up there hooping and hollering, cheering for him, supporting him and everything. There you go, boy, and all that stuff. And he ended up with random Spanish chick. Then he had his whole career. He started having problems where he get disconnected from his family. Your father passed down the genetics for you to be a basketball player. And then he has a mysterious demise in a helicopter crash, and all the money, and lost his daughter as well. That was sad. And then the money flies right out of our community to Vanessa and her Spanish family. Brother Straight Black Saw says she's an extra in the music video when he met her. Again, ran in Los Angeles, every chick is an extra in a music video. You know what I'm saying? Random Spanish chick, like I said. She's an extra in Brandy is a gold selling artist. Brother Kevin said his parents didn't approve of the marriage. Right. Again, he's a prime example of post-racial, the beginning of the post-racial athlete. No disrespect to Kobe. We got to call it like it is. I enjoyed watching him. I enjoyed his talent. Sometimes I would listen to interviews with him and I was like, okay, this cat is pretty sharp. But at the same time, he was the same one that tried to violate, allegedly, a European female. Which you ain't got to do all that because you Kobe Bryant. I don't know what that was about. Right? And then he also the one that sit around and snitched on Shaq and said, man, why are they coming after me? Shaq do it all the time. Hey, hold up, man. What I got to do with this? Right? These things took place. Whatever the Lord will. But that's the mentality of the post-racial athlete. Why can't I get away with this? He get away with it. So even though we have that $3 billion coming in via salaries for athletic competition, we see how easily that goes out the door, right? So that brings us to our modern example of the post-racial athlete that I just wanted to show real quick, that I didn't want to be on here long. Brother from Washington, D.C. Now, I didn't even know, so some of my folks told me. They're like, yeah, Caleb Williams, he from D.C. Right? I'm like, oh, really? I can get this website to work right. Okay, this is not, it ain't working. Anyway, hold on. Oh, no, this is Shaq. All right. This is Shaquille O'Neal. This is what trying to be the post-racial athlete. This is what happens. How many people remember this picture? In this picture, Shaquille O'Neal, this is from a video, got on a wig, makeup, a dress, and is singing Beyonce. In the other picture with Caleb Williams, Caleb Williams talks about painting his nail. Oh, my bad, it's right here. Painting his nails and wearing unique things. If we go back and look at if you look at the thumbnail, he's wearing a dress. So the same, how many times we sit around, we talk about the same rituals that we talk about with the rappers and Hollywood and wearing dresses and stuff like that. Now we see it in sports. How many of us remember Charles Barkley kissing Dick Bavetta? How many people remember that? That was an all-star weekend. For those that don't remember, let me refresh your memory of this. Right? Charles Barkley, who loved talking about everybody. Let's bring Charles.
190. Did you close your eyes? That's all I'm asking. Yes, you did.
See, man, y'all tried to
close your eyes. That was happening. Slow it down.
Boom, chicka, bow, wow. Hey guys, America, that looks a lot worse than slow motion.
Your eyes were closed.
That's a habit. It was just a habit. Right?
You want to be a post-racial athlete? You want to have a job where you are on TV and you can make money for the rest of your life? You want to be well taken care of, even though you don't win any NBA championships? Well, you're going to put on that dress, homie. You're going to be kissing men publicly, wearing toenail polish, all of that. So the same ritual. Oh, my bad. Music, please. There we go. That's better. The same rituals that we hear about in Hollywood and the music industry are now coming to light. I ain't gonna say they start happening because I don't know when. I don't know when this stuff started happening in athletics. Now we're starting to see it in athletics. And remember, do y'all remember like these stories were coming out in high school? Like, some of these high school teams where they were brother, I'm gonna be honest. I wish we could say that, but nah. I would just be honest. Because remember, LeBron put on the dress. Shaq put on the dress. Barkley put on the dress. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, and Caleb Williams got 2 black parents. He put on the dress and and he painted his nails. So I wish I could put it on. Oh, it's the mixed dudes. I can't even do that. I wish I could do that. Can't even do that. Right, bro. Yeah. See, I forgot about that. Brother Igwe popped up and said, "Yeah, what about Magic Johnson?" Here we go. Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas used to kiss each other at the start of the game before the whole world. I remember that. And I would used to be like, yo, I ain't gonna lie. I was like, hey, remember this is Isaiah Thomas from the Bad Boys, Detroit Pistons. Right? But if you remember some of them fights with the Pistons used to get in, look at kind of how Isaiah swung a couple of those punches. You like, oh, okay. I'm just saying, I'm just saying. And as far as Magic Johnson, y'all seen his son. I don't have to say anything else. So when we look at why this $3 billion isn't coming into the community, people are surrounded by hats. They're being effeminized. And they're getting with European females. Now, I was looking up Caleb Williams. He was with He used when he was he went to high school in DC. So when he was in high school in DC, apparently he had a Hispanic female he was dealing with, and I guess he dumped her for a just straight European, and she was there at when he was selected in the draft. What was that, Thursday? Because he's the number 1 overall pick. So as the number 1 overall pick, he's going to a situation where normally number 1 overall picks you don't get that situation, right? They built the team around him. They brought in veteran receivers. They drafted a receiver. I think they have good running backs. I know they worked on their offensive line. Their defense was one of the better defenses of the second half of the season, come to find out. So everything is set up for his success. Everything is set up for him to take a team that has historically not had good quarterbacks, has won with defense and running game. It's set up for him to be the best quarterback in there in the franchise history, to be in a position to win a lot of games and receive a lot of accolades, and compete with Patrick Mahomes. Because people tired of seeing Patrick Mahomes win all the time, so you need somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Let's be honest. It's like the Tom Brady effect, and everything is set up for him. And apparently, he has signaled that I'm willing to receive all these accolades and everything you have for me, because I have already gone through the rituals of putting on the dress. I was trying to, for whatever reason, I can't get their website to act right. I was trying to bring up him in the dress. Now, speaking of people, who in this case came out that we didn't think would be looking weird. Y'all remember this? Jimmy Butler, right? One of the dudes you kind of think of was like one of the, seemed like one of the thorough, hardcore dudes in the league or whatever, tough guy, enforcer. It's Jimmy Butler doing his emo thing. Apparently that was Jimmy Butler from the year before. I had never seen that picture before. And he said that that's the real him. Somebody told me Jimmy Butler got adopted by Europeans. If that is correct, somebody let me know. Unless I'm tripping. This is somebody's son's favorite player, and he came out and took this picture looking like this. I mean, they got to the finals last year. I don't think they're gonna I don't think they're going away this year. It broke said, man, don't even get me started on Dwight Howard. I forgot all about that. I mean, Dwight Howard out here assaulting people. I don't even want to even go into the Dwight Howard thing. Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, that's what I thought, brother. Jimmy Butler's adopted. I mean, the Dwight Howard on now. I give Brother Genie credit. I didn't see it when it happened. He saw it. There's a clip, and I didn't even think about bringing it up because I ain't even want to get into the super homophile aspect of this. But Dwight Howard, for those who remember, grabbed his teammate's sausage on national TV. Yeah, that happened. I'm sure you can find it somewhere. So when this case came up and they said that Dwight Howard assaulted a man, and he tried to say that didn't happen. We see you do it on TV, so we know. I mean, come on, man. Come on, man. If you grab a man's sausage on national TV at an NBA game when you headed toward the bench. If you do that there with 20,000 people watching in the building and who knows how many million people watching via TV, and that was years ago. That was like 5-6 years ago. If you do that then, or maybe even more, then behind closed doors, we already know how it goes down. Right? The idea that this 7-foot dude is out here just... Anyway, let us move on. You said the White House he's proud to be LGBT. I didn't know, because when I saw it and they were asking him, was he rainbow? He was hemming and hawing and saying it's nobody's business and all that. So I didn't know that he was now all of a sudden he openly claiming it, because when I saw it, he wasn't openly claiming it. But I know one thing. I don't care what he say. He assaulted that dude, man. That's all to it. He said Howard is the epitome of black people become Romans. We become hidden. We becoming the spirit of hatness is in us. That's what's in us. Hidden hats. Now, I'm going to show the downside of this, of becoming a post-racial athlete. And then we're going to close this out, because I ain't want to talk about this all night. But where's it at? Blindside, Michael Oher alleges too he's made millions off of lie. Now, for how many people remember this movie, The Blindside? Blindside was a movie about the story of Michael Oher. Really wasn't about the life of Michael Oher. It's the story of Michael Oher. Michael Oher was an NFL offensive lineman that ended up playing for the Baltimore Ravens. In the story, he was, his mother, I believe, was on drugs, and he was adopted, at least in the movie, by some Europeans, right? Now, the thing about it is that this type of thing happens, especially to athletes, a lot, right? This is not, it's more common than we think. If you look at like when I used to have ESPN years ago, they would have these stories of these different athletes, and they would come from these rough backgrounds, and their coach or their assistant coach or some person around them would adopt them for like their high school years and help shepherd them through high school, and then they would get to a university, and before you know it, they're in the NFL or the NBA. I seem to see it a lot more in the NFL. And then these people are their family, and whatever black people they were born to, just kind of like, went on by the wayside. But the Michael Oher case was this case was like the prototype of that. But apparently there was a dark side to it that we didn't hear about. So, says retired NFL star Michael Oher, who supposed adoption out of grinding poverty by a wealthy white family was immortalized in the 2009 movie, The Blind Side, petitioned a Tennessee court Monday with allegations that a central element of the story was a lie concocted by the family to enrich itself at his expense. The 14-page petition filed in Shelby County, Tennessee probate court alleges that Sean and Leanne Toohey, who took Oher into their home as a high school student, never adopted him. Instead, less than 3 months after Oher turned 18 in 2004, the petition says the couple tricked him into signing a document making them his conservators, which gave them legal authority over his business dealings in his name. Stop right there. Remember we talked about 19, 20, 21 year olds not being able to handle a lot of a lot of money, millions of dollars. 18-year-old from an impoverished background gets quote unquote adopted by some Europeans, and they have him sign a document that basically puts them in charge of his money or able to make business decisions in his name. In other words, it's a flim flam. They saw a young man with tremendous athletic potential. They brought him into their home and they used him for the money. And now he's suing them at the age of, I believe the article says, 37, after he's retired. They've been running game on him for almost 20 years. Says the petition further alleges that the Tuohys used their power of conservators to strike a deal that paid them and their two birth children millions of dollars in royalties from the Oscar-winning film that earned more than $300 million, while Oher got nothing for a story that would not have existed without him. In the years since, the Tuohys have continued calling the 37-year-old Oher their adopted son and had used that assertion to promote their foundation, as well as Leanne Tuohy's work as an author and motivational speaker. The lie of Michael Oher's adoption is one upon which co-conservators Leanne Tuohy and Sean Tuohy have enriched themselves at the expense of their ward, the undersigned Michael Oher, the legal filing says. Michael Oher discovered this lie to his chagrin and embarrassment in February 2023, when he learned that the conservatorship to which he consented on the basis that doing so would make him a member of the Tuohy family, in fact provided him no familial relationship with the Tuohys. Let us stop right there. I'm going to ask a question and y'all tell me. Is there anything that can make the lion a relative of the hyena? Y'all let me know. Is there anything that can make the lion a relative of the hyena? Somebody out there, let me know. Is there anything? Yes or no? So even if you take the lion cub and you raise him in the hyena den, he's still a lion at the end of the day, right? And even if the hyenas raise him up to be a hyena, at some point he's gonna look in the mirror or bump into another lion and they're gonna say, hey, you're a lion. And he's gonna like, what are you talking about? I'm like, look in this river, look in this water. And he's gonna like, wait a minute. If I'm a lion, that means somebody's been a lion to me about me not being a lion. This is where Michael Oher is, realizing that the hyenas have pulled a flim flam on him and made millions of dollars off of his story, and he didn't get anything. Right? Now, let's get into a little more of this article. The Tuohy family did not immediately return phone calls Monday to numbers listed for them. Their attorney, Steve Farisi, declined comment to ESPN on Monday, saying the family will file a legal response to the allegations in the coming weeks. Sean Tuohy told the Daily Memphian website that he was stunned by Oher's allegations and said the Tuohys didn't make any money off the movie, only a share of proceeds from Michael Lewis's book, which was the foundation for the film. Now, somebody lying. Because I'm sure that if he made $300 million at that time, And I'm sure it didn't, there's no special effects or anything going on in the movie. You just have to pay the high paid actors. I'm sure they made some money. And if they made some money, I'm sure that somebody got some money. But anyway, we're devastated, Sean Tui told the outlet. It's upsetting to think that we would make money off any of our children. But we're going to love Michael at 37 just like we loved him at 16. Y'all put your cap emojis in here if you think he's lying. Oher's petition asked the court to end the Tui's conservatorship and to issue an injunction barring them from using his name and likeness. It also seeks a full accounting of the money the Tui's earned using Oher's name and to have the couple pay him his fair share of profits, as well as unspecified compensatory and punitive damages. Since at least August of 2004, conservators have allowed Michael specifically and the public generally to believe the conservators adopted Michael and used that untruth to gain financial advantages for themselves and the foundations which they own or which they exercise control. All monies made in said manner should, in all conscience and equity, be disgorged and paid over to the said ward, Mr. Michael Oher. Oher was a rising high school senior when he signed the conservatorship papers, and he has written that the Tui's told him that there was essentially no difference between adoption and conservatorship. They explained to me that it means pretty much the exact same thing as adoptive parents, but that the laws were just written in a way that took my age into account, Oher wrote in 2001 best-selling memoir, I Beat the Odds. But there are some important legal distinctions. If Oher had been adopted by the Tui's, he would have been a legal member of their family, and he would have retained power to handle his own financial affairs. Under conservatorship, Oher surrendered that authority to the Tui's, even though he was a legal adult with no known physical or psychological disabilities. In other words, a flim-flam. The petition alleges the Tui's began negotiating a movie deal about their relationship with Oher shortly after the release of the 2006 book, The Blind Side: Evolution of a Game, which chronicled the story. According to legal filing, the movie paid the Tui's and their birth children each $225,000 plus 2.5% of the film's defined net proceeds. The movie became a critically acclaimed blockbuster, reportedly grossing more than $300 million at the box office and tens of millions of dollars more in home video sales. The movie received an Oscar nomination for Best Picture, and Sandra Bullock won a Best Actress trophy for her portrayal of Leanne Tui. While the deal allowed the Tui's to profit from the film, the petition alleges a separate 2007 contract purportedly signed by Oher appears to give away to 20th Century Fox the life rights to his story without any payment whatsoever. The filing says Oher has no recollection of signing that contract, and even if he did, no one explained the implications thereof to him. The deal lists all four Tui family members as having the same representation at Creative Arts Agency, CAA, the petition says. But Oher's agent, who would receive movie contract and petition notices, is listed as Deborah Brannon, a close family friend of the Tui's, and the same lawyer who filed the 2004 conservatorship petition, the petition alleges. Brannon did not return a call to her office on Monday. In the past, the Tui's have denied making money from the movie, saying that they received a flat fee for the story, did not reap any of the movie's profits. Apparently, that's a lie. And what they did earn, they shared with Oher. Apparently, that's a lie. We divided it 5 ways, the Tui's wrote in a book, In a Heartbeat, sharing the power of cheerful giving. Oher's court petition says he never received any money from the movie, and even though he long suspected others were profiting, according to his attorney, J. Gerald Stranch IV. When Oher asked questions, he did not get straight answers. And since the film's success coincided with the start of his lucrative NFL career in 2009, Oher did not take the time to fully investigate the deal until he retired in 2016, Stranch said. Oher eventually hired a lawyer who helped him uncover the details involving the movie deal and his legal connection to the people he believed were his adoptive parents. His lawyer unearthed the conservatorship documents in February, and Oher came to the painful realization that the Tuohys had, in fact, not adopted him. Michael didn't grow up with a stable family life. When the Tuohy family told Michael they loved him and wanted to adopt him, it filled a void that had been with him his entire life. Discovering that he wasn't actually adopted devastated Michael and wounded him deeply. It's a picture of the Tuohy family. I guess that's the daughter on the right, the son Sean Jr. on the left, Leanne Tuohy and Sean on all the way on the right. The petition makes a sharp break in what had been an inspiring, if unsettlingly stereotypical, feel-good story. The movie portrays the story the Tuohys adopted Oher, a poor, virtually homeless, and academically challenged black teenager. They made Oher part of a functional family for the first time. They helped him catch up in school, taught him the basics of football, and how to harness his physical skills, putting him on the road to stardom. The truth, however, was more complicated. Oher certainly led a hard-knock life growing up, but he also had the smarts, the pluck, and plenty of help from the Tuohys and others to rise above his circumstances. Oher was one of 12 children born to his mother who struggled with drug addiction. Before his 11th birthday, Oher was placed in foster care, where he bounced around numerous homes and at times lived on the streets. Although he was a capable student, he attended 11 schools in 9 years and repeated both the first and second grade, leaving him behind academically. His fortunes changed after a father's friend, impressed with Oher's inner drive and focus, introduced him to the principal of a private Christian school in a prosperous Memphis neighborhood. Others began attending, Oher began attending the school in 10th grade, even as his home life remained chaotic. He was a sports prodigy, excelling in track and field, basketball, and football, a game he had studied for years. He began playing football in his new school in 11th grade, quickly establishing himself as one of the nation's top offensive linemen, and college scholarship offers poured in from big-time football programs from across the country. Because of his unstable housing situation, Oher frequently stayed at the homes of his classmates, including the Tuohys, whose children attended school. The petition said that the Tuohys formed a closer relationship with him once Oher's athletic prowess drew wide attention. They invited him to stay more nights at their spacious Memphis home and took him shopping. Eventually, they asked Oher to move in. They encouraged him to address them as mom and dad and said they planned to adopt him, the filing says. Oher was delighted with all of that at the time, Glory said, and he fully trusted the Tuohys. Oher went to play college football at the University of Mississippi, the Tuohys' alma mater. So they even basically picked a school for him. He was a two-time All-American and the first-round pick of the Baltimore Ravens in 2009. That's Mr. Oher. After the success of The Blind Side, however, suspicion slowly eclipsed Oher's trust of the Tuohys. Mike's relationship with the Tuohy family started to decline when he discovered that he was portrayed in the movie as unintelligent. Their relationship continued to deteriorate as he learned that he was the only member of the family not receiving royalty checks from the movie. It was permanently fractured when he realized he wasn't adopted as part of the family. For years, Oher has chafed at how The Blind Side depicted him, saying it hurt his football career and clouded how people came to view him. He said that based on the film, some NFL decision makers assumed that he was mentally slow or lacked leadership skills. People look at me and they take things away from me because of the movie, Oher told ESPN in 2015. They didn't really see the skills and the kind of player I am. For their part, the Tuohys agreed that Oher always had what it took to succeed. There's a fundamental misapprehension about Michael, is that he needed saving, the Tuohys wrote in their book. We discovered that underneath his shyness, his foot shuffling and head ducking, he had a tremendous will and to determine the course of his life. For years, Oher has said he was content to live with the myth created by the movie, reasoning that its inspirational message outweighed the pain inflicted by what he saw as an inaccurate portrayal of his life. But that has changed. There's been so much created from The Blind Side that I'm grateful for, which is why you might find it a shock that the experience around the story was also been a large source of deepest hurt and pain over the years, Oher wrote in his book, When Your Back's Against the Wall. Beyond the details of the deal, the politics, and the money behind the book and movie, it was the principle of the choices some people made that cut me the deepest. So here's the reality situation. Michael Oher was exploited by some Europeans that he trusted because he was born into an environment that was unstable because of his mother being an addict. Now, we all know where the drugs came from. They came to the black community, but that's another discussion for another day. But this is a perfect prime example of how athletes can be exploited on their way upward towards fame and fortune, right? This is a prime example. Everybody thought this was an inspirational story, and oh my goodness, they came and took in the big black Negro, and they helped him read and write, and he went on to become successful and make something of himself. When in reality, he had everything that it took, but he just needed some stability. And they provided him with that, but they took advantage of him in the meanwhile to make sure that they got apparently what they felt they deserved. And that's how the system works. And he thought he was going to be, I mean, but it's so symbolic, to be honest. It's so symbolic of black people in America, where we think that because of our skills, because of our talents, because of our abilities, and because we want to show that we love these folks, that they're going to accept us. And even after letting us into their home, if you will, symbolically the home of America, all that it is exploitation in the grand scheme of things. And so the Michael Oher story is very much the story of black people in America in the post civil rights integration era, where we think we're doing well, and we're on TV and in movies, and people complimenting us and talk about how great we're doing and how we've come so far, and in the grand scheme of things, you're just being exploited. So, with that, brothers and sisters, I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This has been your brother, DC Radical 1. With that, I say, be before ODA and straight black pride. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_ONE. And the Cashapp is $DC Radical 1. Again, thank you for subscribing. A beat before ODA and straight black pride.